Hi, I'm Marcus White and this is Everyone is God. And today I want to talk about a subject that's really close to my heart, that's quantum mechanics. And I want to compare it to human emotions. So it's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I studied quantum mechanics as an undergraduate when I did a physics degree, and that was about 30 years ago now. And ever since then, it's been a subject that I've considered in depth, and it really ties in with my spirituality. And I've spoke about it before on other videos as well. Now, the ideas I've got today about quantum mechanics linking with human emotion isn't unique. I have quickly looked on Google, and certainly there are other people who've drawn parallels between quantum mechanics and emotion. And I just thought I'd give my take on it and really link it in with spirituality. So the first thing that I want to say is my fundamental belief is that everyone's God. And because of that, I believe everything's connected. We are God, we are everything, and therefore everything is connected. And it also means, if we are God, that we know everything. Now, if we know everything, why don't we see it everywhere? Why don't we have this knowledge at our fingertips? And I believe that this is part of the journey of life, to reveal that knowledge within us. And this is something that myself and my partner are trying to do. Now, because everything's God, everything is a manifestation of God. So every event we see must reveal the full truth of God. And what I believe is that actually all truth is revealed in all circumstances. So the truths we see in science should be revealed in our daily life. And if we are looking at something like quantum mechanics, then the truth of quantum mechanics should show in our daily life. And this is the question I'm posing today. How does quantum mechanics show in our human experience? So do forgive me, I've got my notes here, so you will see me looking down. So I think many physicists feel that quantum mechanics is different to everyday life. In the scientific world, we talk about the quantum realm, which is the realm of very small particles and the behaviours those particles demonstrate at the very tiniest size of nature. And physicists call this scale of things the macro world. And I think there's feeling amongst certain physicists that the quantum world and the macroscopic world are very different, and that things that happen in quantum mechanics don't necessarily happen in the quantum world. Some physicists may feel differently about this. I don't want to speak for physicists, but what I want to do today is look at those parallels between the tiny world of quantum mechanics and the world of human beings and what we experience. So the question really is, do the truths of quantum mechanics reveal themselves in our daily life? So what I want to do then is introduce one of the most fundamental parts of quantum mechanics, one of the core areas of it, which is described by the Schrodinger Equation. It's an equation that's very profound in physics, and it describes a huge area of the physics knowledge we have. In particular, it describes a big area of quantum mechanics and how atoms and molecules and many other things behave in the physical world. So it's something that's very applicable to so many things. It's really foundational science that a lot of other things build upon. So what I want to do is quickly, I just want to write out the Schrodinger equation so that you know that it's actually something that exists and you can see what it looks like. Obviously for non-physicists it won't mean anything, but I just want to show it to you. So let me quickly draw it out for you. So here we go. Minus h bar squared upon 2m, sorry I've made a mistake actually, that square's not there, del squared psi plus v psi equals E psi. So I'm not going to worry about what this means particularly, but I am going to say a few things about it as we go through it. But I just want you to see it so you know we're talking about a real equation and it's not just sort of an idea I've plucked out of the air. Now, in quantum mechanics we have lots of weird and wonderful properties. We've got things like quantum tunneling, where particles seem to be able to go through walls that they should never be able to get through. We've got things like quantum entanglement, where particles seem to be connected with each other and can communicate their state with each other and match each other even when they're separated by vast distances. And this communication appears to take place faster than the speed of light. And we've got things like Schrodinger's cat, where particles can be in maybe more than one state at once. There's a whole debate about this in physics. So what I want to look at is some of these properties and what happens with the Schrodinger equation. Now, the way the Schrodinger equation works is that this term here is essential. This equation can be used to describe atoms. It's one of the ways it's commonly used to describe atoms. And the way it works is we have to decide what this is first here. This tells us about the environment the atom's in, what's around it. And then once we've got that information, we can solve this equation and it gives us a set of answers, solutions to the equation. Those solutions tell us how that atom behaves. Now, this equation is some of the most accurately tested science we have on this planet. It's tested to an extraordinary accuracy, and it's been tested just so many times over. It's basically some of the hardest science we have. So it's certainly telling us things that are true, and it's telling us precisely a whole wealth of information about how atoms behave. So it's got very good standing. Now, when you solve this for an atom, what actually happens is you get different solutions, and those solutions correspond to different states. The atom itself can be in different modes, different states, and this is the idea of Schrodinger's cat. The atom is in different states at once. And straight away this raises some questions. What are these states and how do they compare to macroscopic level of experience? So let's just quickly draw a comparison now between atoms and human beings. So if I do two columns, call this one atoms. So this is atoms as described by this equation. And let's call this column humans. Now, the first thing is that atoms, in order for this to work, they are aware of what is around them. Forgive my spelling if I make any mistakes, I'm dyslexic. Okay, so atoms are aware of their environment. Now, clearly, we also have awareness of our environment. We have many senses, and with those senses we are aware of what's going on around us, and we're acutely aware quite often. It's very normal for us to pick up on all sorts of cues outside of us, and this is exactly what happens with atoms, because this function here is their awareness of what is going on around them, and they're actually aware of everything. This function has to be specified over the entire universe if you're going to solve this equation. And so atoms are highly aware of their environment, and I think it's fair to say that humans also are aware of our environment. Now, the second thing is that the atom feels and responds to its environment. So not only does it feel it, not only is it aware of it, it's feeling it and responding to it. So I'm going to put that here. Feels and responds. So the way this works in this equation, if anything in the environment changes around the atom, this term here also changes. And as soon as that term changes, you get different solutions and you get different states of the atom. It responds, it changes, its behaviour literally changes. It's almost like it's becoming a new atom. And this is true on a vast scale. This function is over the entire universe. So any change anywhere in the universe, the atom responds to it. And this seems very much like us because humans talk so much about the feel in a room, or the feeling they got from somebody, or the feeling from a place, or they went into a graveyard and it felt eerie, or they went into a nightclub and it felt very energetic. We are hyper aware of our environments and we respond to that. We're very sensitive to people's emotions and behaviour, and if somebody around us is very happy and excited, it's very likely that we might feel that. If the environment around us is very happy and excited, we're likely to feel this. We respond to it. And if we're around people that are really struggling or in fear or depressed, we're also liable to feel those things. We're always responding to our environment. So again, it would seem that humans and atoms are mimicking the same type of behaviour. So I'd say yes, humans definitely feel and respond to their environment, just like atoms do. So now what happens is when we solve this equation, the different solutions are called different states, and we have what's called quantum numbers to describe those states. It's just simple numbering system and letter system that tells you all the specific states the atom can be in. And there's actually an infinite amount of them. And we label the states with things like this. So here's the different states. And they're called things like, we've got a 1s state, which is the ground state, the lowest energy state, 2s, 2p is another state. Don't need to worry about what these things mean. Quantum physicists will understand this. But these basic, all I want to try and explain is that these different numbers here explain and label the different states the atom can be in. Now, this looks very much like the states of a human being because we have these different emotional states. We have peacefulness, we feel jealous, we feel happy, we feel sad, excited, all sorts, tired, all sorts of different feelings, depressed, anxious, whatever. We have many different feelings, and again we have names for those feelings. So when we have these different feelings, we behave in different ways, and that's exactly what happens with the atom, because when it's in different states it behaves in different ways as well. So again, it seems like both atoms and human beings have this jumping between states. We exist in different states. So these ideas of quantum mechanics seem to follow through straight into human behaviour. So again, I'd put a tick there and say that we're demonstrating similar behaviour. Now, so physicists talk about something which is, sorry, I've spelled it wrong, excited states. So this state here is called the ground state. It's the calmest state that the atom can possibly be in. And when, for example, a photon of light hits the atom can absorb that, and the electrons jump up to higher energy levels within the atom, and physicists say that the atom has become excited. And again, this is just like the terminology you would use to describe humans. If a human goes into a particular environment, we might become excited, our emotions might be elevated, and they're elevated from a ground state. So again, it seems like the language used in quantum mechanics and the experience we're seeing with atoms is similar for humans, as we seem to jump up into these higher states of emotion and then we return back down. So this really is the last comparison I want to make. Now I think you can just about see it. So I'm going to put here returns to ground state. Forgive my writing. Now, so whenever an atom becomes excited, by any means, but light is a very common one, it will always want to return back down to this ground state, this state here, which is the rest state, if you like, the calm state of the atom. So atoms seem to have this calm state, just like human beings. We, whenever we jump up to a higher state of emotion, a more excited emotion, the emotion tends to calm with times, and we come back to a more peaceful state, and we have a sort of resting, calm state that is our usual state that we'll return to from generally any emotion. And that's exactly what an atom does as well. So again, I would put a tick here. So it seems like to my mind, there's this huge parallel between quantum states and quantum mechanics of atoms and the way we humans behave. Now, this poses a question. Are emotions quantum states of the human body? What we say here is that the states we're describing here are quantum states of an atom. But are our emotions the quantum states of the human body? If we could solve the Schrodinger equation for not just one atom but our entire body, would we get a set of solutions come out of that which are emotions? Would these functions that come out of this equation literally spit out love, joy, fear, excitement? Would these states actually come out and we'd have a mathematical, physical explanation for emotions? It's a question I've thought about for many years, and to me, I believe the answer is yes. It's almost inescapably yes. It just seems so many parallels between these behaviours of atoms and humans, and I believe one day we will have a science where we will actually mathematically be able to describe and quantify emotion. So I just want to talk how this feeds into my spirituality and the spiritual ideas I've got. So one of the things I've noticed is that feelings and consciousness go hand in hand, and I'm sure once I explain this we'll all relate to this. The emotions we have affect very strongly our perception of things. So to put it in very simple terms, if we're calm, we quite often have a calm view of things. If we become very angry, we can have a completely different view of the same circumstance. If we're angry with someone, we might behave and perceive them very differently to how we would perceive them if we were calm. And every emotion seems to affect our consciousness and the way we perceive things. Now, what I've noticed in my experience is I can go into certain states where I'm calmer and more lucid, and you can start to work out problems and see truths in things and patterns that ordinarily, if you're in a different state of emotion, you might not see. So there are states where we become far more lucid and are able to penetrate into truth much more deeply. And again, I think, these ideas aren't new. Scientists are looking at this, and they talk about various brain waves and how our consciousness changes with different frequency brain waves. There's all sorts of research and ideas going on around this. Now, there's lots of evidence, I think, anecdotal evidence and debate about this subject of consciousness, of emotion, what's going on physiologically in the body. And you can, in my experience, I've had very heightened states of emotion and lucidity. I'm not sure if that's a word, but when you're very lucid. And this has happened to an extreme. I've had visions so intense that it affects me physically and it almost gives me like seizures. And I've had experiences of sort of enlightenment where everything becomes clear, absolutely everything. And there's a strong feeling with this. It's not just a mental thing, it's being accompanied by a feeling as well. This feeling and consciousness and thought seem to go very closely together. Scientists have talked about this, and there's accounts, I'm not sure of the truth of them, but there are accounts of scientists who have used hallucinogens to increase their understanding of their field. They use it as a tool to try and get greater understanding of their field, and they go into slightly altered states of consciousness. I saw one documentary where a chemist said that he was taking a hallucinogen and he was able to sit on molecules and see how they worked, and this was helping his understanding of chemistry. There's stories of Francis Crick, the scientist who worked on the double helix structure of DNA, and actually received a Nobel Prize for it. There's stories that he experimented with LSD, and that this helped him with his understanding of the double helix structure of DNA. Whether these are true, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. He's passed now. But certainly, again, these ideas have been talked about and investigated for thousands of years. And of course, there's many tribal societies that have used hallucinogens and altered states of consciousness to try and access truth for hundreds and thousands of years. So this really brings me to the end of what I want to talk about. My view is that all of the truth is in front of us all of the time. And just like with quantum mechanics, if we know how to look at this macro state, this world around us, in a very penetrating, deep and open-hearted way, we can start to access maybe the truth of quantum mechanics and actually experience it in our human experience rather than through the experimental setups that physicists use. Maybe we can have direct experience of it. And if we are actually able to do that, what would happen if we connected with all our emotions fully? Would we be able to penetrate into all of truth, not just quantum mechanics? This is something that I believe very passionately. I believe that if we're able to go into all of our emotions and not hide from any aspect of them, and feel all the darkness and lightness and every aspect of every emotion without any judgment or fear, then I think we can access the truth of everything. We could actually access the knowledge of God, which I believe we've all got, not just of quantum mechanics, but everything. So I think that's really the conclusion of where I'm trying to get to with this talk, that the things we're finding out in physics draw parallels with human experience. And maybe we can close that gap down between these very elaborate experiments we do for physics to understand things like atoms and nature and our human experience, maybe we can start to close that gap down and actually bring them together so they become one. And maybe we can gain direct access to these aspects of nature and knowledge without having to carry out experiments. Maybe we can sit on atoms and watch them and understand all the energy states and levels and interactions that are going on between atoms. Maybe we can access that through our emotions and through our heart in altered states of consciousness. And I'm not talking with drugs, I'm talking through meditation and through a spiritual training. This is, again, something that I'm trying to do with the work I'm doing with my partner. And I hope one day that we will actually make more progress with this. So really that's the conclusion of what I wanted to say. I hope this is of interest to you and maybe inspires you to think about the experiences you're having in a new way, in a deeper way, and try and penetrate into them and see what they're really telling you about yourself and about the world we live in. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.